Welcome back to Hoopla. I'm your host, Ethan Jackson, and the NBA season is in full swing, and I could not be more excited about it. Every team has played around 5, 6, 7 games, somewhere around there, and there's been one day of the new in-season tournament games. So there's plenty of stuff to talk about, and honestly, there's too much stuff to talk about. So I admit I had a tough time deciding what my topics were going to be, but in this episode, I'm going to discuss my biggest takeaways from the first week of the season. I feel kind of obligated to start with the James Harden trade. Then I want to talk about the Nuggets and Celtics' surprising but yet unsurprising dominance. And then the Mavs and the Warriors' hot starts to the season. The Lakers' weird first five games. Then I want to give my reaction to the start of the in-season tournament. And then also I have something that I want to rant about. But before I get started, I want to say that you can now listen on Apple Podcasts and Spotify if you would rather do that than sit here and stare at me. It's early on Saturday morning right now, so I might look a little tired. So if you'd rather listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can do that. And with that being said, let's get straight into it. As I said, I feel kind of obligated as an NBA podcast to start with the big news from earlier this week. The 76ers traded James Harden and PJ Tucker to the Clippers in exchange for Marcus Morris, Nicholas Batum, Robert Covington, KJ Martin, and some picks. So I feel like the best way to attack this is to kind of give my thoughts on the trade for both teams and then kind of discuss who I thought won the trade. I'm going to start with the 76ers. This is a classic case of what some call addition by subtraction. They will be better without both Harden and Tucker. I know that's going to sound crazy, but I think they will be better without both of them. So losing Harden, it gets rid of the distraction and the headache and the cloud that was going to be hovering over the team the entire season or until they decided to trade him. Or if they decided to keep him, there was going to be this cloud kind of hovering over. He was having to come to the games to avoid getting fined and things like that. So it was just going to be a weird and awkward situation. So I'm glad they got rid of him. And also it kind of allows Maxey to understand that he is now fully the number 2 on that team, which will really help him. And losing PJ Tucker, I've always liked PJ Tucker, but I feel like the game is kind of moving past him. Having another threat on the floor will prove really helpful to this team. Teams struggle when they have non-threats on the floor, whether it's the Timberwolves with Rudy Gobert in the game. It just kind of mucks up the offense some. Unless you're the Warriors, but they even struggle. If you watch the Lakers series last year, they struggled when they had Draymond and Kevon Looney on the floor at the same time, just because the spacing gets kind of iffy and teams can just back off and slack off of them so far that it makes scoring for their superstars even harder. So I'm glad they got him out of there, and then they'll be able to put another shooter, another scorer in the game. Then the new additions, they brought in Morris, Batum, and Covington, like I said, and they're all pretty much bring the same thing to the table. They bring a veteran presence. All of them are older in their 30s. They've played in lots of big games and moments. None of them have really won at the highest level, like in terms of championships, but they've played a lot of big playoff games. They can all shoot threes and play relatively good defense, which is, that's the perfect type of players to put around Embiid and Maxey. And then it seems like Nick Nurse, it seems like he likes coaching these type of players because it gives him their big wings that he can mix and match with any lineup. And then because like in Toronto, there was times where he would have 5 wings on the floor. And so it just gives him a lot of options that he can play with. And as I said earlier, Tyrese Maxey is I think he's going to go to another level. It is officially go time for him now. And I'm like I said, I'm excited to see it. I don't know if you've been watching him this season, but he has been cooking. Like, he has been balling, like, properly. Like, I think he's averaging like over 25 points a game, something like that, but shooting very well from the field. I don't know if he can keep it up, but I think he will now that Harden is gone. And we may see his confidence rise to another level because this move shows that the organization has full confidence in him. Therefore, that confidence will trickle down and he'll have even more confidence in himself. And then even if they decide they don't want to keep these 3 players that they brought in, Batum and Covington and Morris, it gives them some options at the trade deadline or just throughout the season. I know I've already heard that they're looking at Zach LaVine on the Bulls or OG Anunoby. I like both of them. Would like OG more than LaVine on this team, but you never know how they decide they want to go about it. But I was watching a Pistons game the other day, and I think somebody like Joe Harris would be a good pickup for them. Just kind of a big guard that is one of the best shooters in the league. I think would really help them. You can never have too much shooting when you have a dominant big man like him. And then just for the team overall, it feels like a fresh start, and I know they feel it too. It's like you got that out of the way. And now it's time that you're 6 games in, and all of the distractions are going. And it's time to go and like I said, they're the third best team in the they are probably already were, but they're officially the third best team in this conference. And depending on how these new players look and or a trade they make, they can move up right behind those Celtics and the Bucks. So we'll see how it goes. And for the Clippers, on the Clipper side of things, I'm not sure yet that I love the move. I haven't really. I know it's been like 5 days, but I haven't really. I just need to see them play together. I don't know how it's gonna work. They sacrifice some depth and versatility to bring Harden in, and he just brings tons and tons of questions with him. I mean, first one, like what will happen to Westbrook's role? I mean, he has been playing really really well. He's been averaging 15 points, 8 rebounds, and 7 assists while shooting 51% from the field and 39% from three, which is, we all know that's really good for Russell Westbrook. And let's just face it, he's not an off-ball player, neither is James Harden. And honestly, neither is Kawhi or Paul George. So I don't know exactly how this is going to work. I mean, Russ is the type of player that, I mean, he can hustle, go get offensive rebounds, but he can only impact the game if he's got the ball going downhill and making plays. And, like, how does it affect the locker room? I assume stars and coaches signed off on the trade. I assume Ballmer didn't make the trade without asking them, but I mean, you never know with him. He is just trying to build a team to get fans in that new arena when it's built. And then like players like Terrence Mann and Bones Highland, they may not like the trade. Like the stars might have got to approve it, but I don't know if they got to approve it. I mean, like Bones Highland wanted to leave the Nuggets because he was unhappy with the role he had. That's the whole reason he came to the Clippers. So his role is definitely going to get smaller now that Harden is coming in. So how does he react to that? Does he ask for another trade? I mean, is he unhappy? Did he become a cancer in the locker room? Because it don't take much to create that awkwardness and that weird relationship with coaches and the staff members and the players. It creates an environment that, especially with the lack of leadership they have on that team, I don't know if they could get it under control. So it's just it'll be a weird situation. It'll be interesting to see. However, with all that being said, I mean, I'm not going to sit and act like James Harden is a bum or something. I mean, he's still a guy that can snatch playoff games from you like he did in games 1 and 4 of the Celtics series last season. But these games come very rarely. I was watching First Take the other day, and I'm going to steal this stat from Tim Legler, as he said James Harden played 13 playoff games for the Sixers. And other than the 3 good ones, games 1 and 4 of the Celtics series last year and then the Heat game 4 the year before, in the other 10 games, he is averaging 14.5 points on 32% from the field and 22% from three. This is one of the best scores this game has ever seen, and he does this in the playoffs. And it's time and time again, so I hate to keep saying this over and over, but it just seems like when the time comes, he just don't show up. So I don't know how it's going to be any different in this situation. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe he will eventually. Man, he's in his hometown. I don't know. He's in the point of his career where he just wants to win. He claims he just wants to win. I don't know. But I don't know. But, I mean, I have to give them the benefit of the doubt as a team, like I did with the Suns, saying that they can figure out the chemistry just because I think they're all in that stage where winning is really the only thing that matters to them. They've all kind of had their own personal accolades. They've got everything they need. And I saw his press conference. I don't know if y'all saw the Harden's introductory press conference, but I didn't really like some of the things he said. Because it was like one time he talked about how he was on a leash. He felt like he was on a leash in Philly, and how he's not a system player, but he is a system. I'm not sure that screams sacrifice, and that's going to be what it takes for this team to gel together, sacrifice. So if he felt like he was on a leash in Philly, and he was unhappy and uncomfortable there, and with that role where he literally had the ball in his hands every possession, even though he was asked to be more of a facilitator, then I have no idea how he's going to like his role that he's given on the Clippers. But I guess we'll see, because it seems like his role should be smaller than it was in Philly. But I don't know. Overall, I don't really know. I don't really know what to make of this trade yet. I mean, I have to see them with some time together. But if I feel like if there's any coach in the league that can manage these egos and manage these mix of play styles, I feel like it's Ty Lue. But like I said, I honestly have no idea what to think about it. And as far as who won the trade, I think it remains to be seen. Like they always say, the team that gets the best player, especially in basketball, the team that gets the best player always wins the trade. But I don't know if I subscribe to that notion. I think it's true most of the time, but in this case, right now, I think the 76ers won the trade. But I guess we will see. I know as a fan, I'm excited. I know the NBA is excited. It just seems like the drama and the storylines just keep getting better and better. So I cannot wait to watch the Sixers play. I cannot wait to watch the Clippers play. So we'll see how everything works out. All right, so now that I've talked about the Harden trade, let's move on into the next topic I wanted to talk about, which was the Nuggets and the Celtics dominance in this early part of the season. I had, as some of you may know, I had both the Nuggets and the Celtics as the favorites, or at least one of the favorites in their respective conferences, but I will have to admit I was not expecting them to be this dominant this early in the season, but for different reasons, obviously. For the Nuggets, I thought they would have a bit of a championship hangover to start the season, but I realized that was not going to happen in the first quarter of the game against the Lakers in opening night ring and during the ring ceremony. That quite possibly could have been the closest thing I've seen to a perfect quarter of basketball that I think I'll ever see. And there was a few days like when they were 4-0, there was a few days that it looked like they may not lose a game all year, and I'm serious when I say that. There was a time where I was like, I don't know if anybody can beat them. They seemed invincible. And then they go to Minnesota and get blown out by the T-Wolves. It just shows how crazy the NBA is and how much talent there is and how teams, if you don't bring your A game every night, you can get beat on any given night. So I just don't think that leads back to my point that I don't think there's going to be any crazy records this year. I think 55, 60 wins is going to be about the highest we see from any team. But during that, talking about that T-Wolves game for a minute, I was unable to watch that game. But based on the box score, it seemed like the Wolves executed the blueprint that I've always said I feel like is the best chance to beat them. I feel like I would make Jokic be a pure scorer. I'd make him, if he wants to go for 50 or 60 to beat us, then we will get beat that way. But I just think that because I think they're way more dangerous when everybody and all the role players and MPJ and KCP and Jamal Murray, Aaron Gore, everybody gets going. I think that's what makes them so dangerous and what makes that starting lineup so dangerous. So I just feel like if you make Jokic a pure scorer and eliminate everything else, which is extremely hard to do with all the motion they have, but I just feel like if you're able to do that, you have a great chance of winning. I looked at the box score, and KCP had 4 shots, Gordon had 3 shots, MPG only had 11, Murray had 16, and Jokic had 23 shot attempts, which I feel like is a lot for him. He only averaged 17 in the 4 previous wins before that loss. But with all that said, I mean, they still have been, besides that game, they have looked really, really good. And it looks like they picked up right where they left off. That starting 5 might be the perfect 5-man lineup, in not stats-wise, but like for the modern NBA game, the way the game is played, that might be the perfect NBA lineup. But I'm a little worried about their bench so far. Honestly, I think Mike Malone will get it figured out. But like then Bruce Brown and Jeff Green, I can already see the holes where they're missing at, but they've been all right without them so far, but I can see those exact moments in the game where they're missing Bruce Brown and Jeff Green. And with all the offseason moves, they didn't really make any moves. If anything, they just lost players, and they still seem like they may very well be the best team in the league, and they will probably continue their dominance for the rest of the season. Moving on to the Celtics, I knew they were going to be one of, if not the best teams in the league with the offseason moves. They were probably my favorites to win it all if you would ask me to pick before the season started. And I shouldn't go on record saying this now, but because I don't like making this early of predictions, but they were my favorite I think they put together the best offseason in my opinion. But I didn't expect them to be this dominant this early. I mean, they just beat the Pacers by 51 points. 51 points. That is unheard of in the NBA. There's blowouts with bad teams and stuff, but with the 3-ball, you should not get beat by 51 points. So I mean, I didn't watch the game, but that seems like a scary time for the rest of the NBA if they're able to beat somebody by 50 points. I don't know, they were hot and Pacers weren't, but still, the pieces of this team just fit. It is that simple. If Porzingis and Holiday were a glove and the Celtics were a hand, it would be the complete opposite of OJ's glove, because that thing would fit perfectly on their hand. It's that simple. If whatever they say, if the glove don't fit, you must have quit. This glove fits. That's all I know. This glove fits. Much like that Nuggets lineup, their starting lineup is pretty special. Porzingis is playing lights out, shooting 55% from the field and 45% from 3. Drew Holiday being Drew Holiday, just a solid guy in the NBA. Now their bench, on the other hand, it has a bit to be desired. But when you have 4 players of that caliber of Tatum, Brown, Holiday, and Porzingis, it's easy for coach to mix and match rotations where you have at least one of them on the floor at all times, which can kind of offset your bad bench because you have one quote-unquote star player in at all times that you can run your offense through. And that helps hide all those flaws. But like I said, I knew the Celtics were going to be really, really good this year, but I was not expecting things to gel this quickly. And I have to admit, I'm a bit scared for the rest of the league because I don't know if you've been watching, but they look great. All right, the next thing I wanted to talk about was unlike the Celtics and the Nuggets, who most people expected, including, I didn't expect them to get off to this good of start, but I expected them to have a good start to the season. There are a couple teams that I was not expecting to get off to this good of a start, and those teams are the Mavs and the Warriors. Although I said the Mavs were a dangerous team in my previous episode, my Western Conference breakdown, I was not expecting them to get off to the start that they have. I mean, the obvious thing is Luka has to be the front runner for the MVP so far. This is one, the MVP will probably change every week depending on how well people are playing, how somebody has a couple off games, but right now he's absolutely locked in, and it's pretty special to watch. They haven't had Kyrie for a couple games due to injury, but Luka has single-handedly carried them, and he's getting help, but he has single-handedly carried them to some of these wins. And I'm worried his level of play. It is Luka Doncic. He is a great player, but I'm worried it's not sustainable. He's doing some unreal things right now, and I don't know if he can sustain that for 82 games. But if Kyrie can get healthy, they may not need this level of play from him. So I hope Kyrie can get on the floor and stay healthy for at least 60 games this year. Obviously, I know he's not going to play all 82, but at least stay healthy for the majority of the season. Tim Hardaway Jr. has been, like I said, he has been Luka's second-hand man, and right now he's been automatic, and I think he's proven that he can be a legit third option in terms of scoring. He's averaging 20 points, which ain't easy, and he's doing it while shooting 43% from three. And I know it's early, but if they can get a consistent 18 to 20 points from him all season long consistently, I think they realistically have a chance to be a top 4 seed in this conference. Now, I really think their offense can be that good that they can win a lot of games and cause some problems in this conference. And then Derek Lively, he from the first game on, he's been doing exactly what I thought he could do. He's proving himself to be a great lob threat, which is opening up things for Luka in the pick and roll, because now the bigs, when they're guarding, they cannot fully commit to stepping a step to the left or right to commit to Luka, because they've got this lob threat behind them, and they know if they commit to Luka, he can just throw it up, and they don't have time to turn and get back and contest a lob. Whereas if it was a Maxi Kleber or somebody that's popping, we may switch it, or we may be able to show myself a little bit and still get out there. If it's just a normal roller, I can show and still get back and contest the shot because it's not an instant dunk. So this is really opening up things for Luka, and it's also, Lively's getting a lot of dunks because of it. But I wouldn't be surprised if teams start to blitz Luka and when they run their pick and roll, just so it would make Lively, because if he gets trapped, he has to instantly dump that off to Derek Lively, and then Lively's going downhill more than likely on a 3-on-2 or a 3-on-1, and he just has to make the right play. But he's a rookie, big man, you never know. But I think teams are going to make him have to start doing that, and it'll be interesting to see how he is able to handle that. But we're five games in now, and he is playing the most minutes at the center position, which means that the coaching staff really trust him, and honestly it means that Luka trusts him, because if they weren't playing well together, he wouldn't be in the game. Grant Williams is another player that is quietly doing his thing, averaging 15 a game. I honestly wouldn't have thought he would average that much, but he is. But I'm still a little worried about their defense, but it seems like they're trying to get better at it just from watching. I think I've watched four of their 5 games, and it seems like they're trying, especially Luka. At least in the games I've watched, he is at least putting in effort. Obviously, he's a little bit slow-footed, but he is strong and he's big, so he should be able to be a decent defender and not just be a complete liability like he was when he just wasn't even trying. And I believe they're second in offensive rating right now. If the last time I looked, I believe they were second in offensive rating, so they do not have to be. We've seen this plenty of times in the past. When you've got that good of an offense, you don't have to be great on defense. You don't have to be top 10. All you have to do is be middle of the pack. You just can't be back of the pack. You can't be 29th in defense and expect to do anything in this league. So maybe they can just stay around anywhere from 13 to 17, and I think they'll be a pretty good team. But I'm liking what I'm seeing from them right now. I didn't necessarily like last night against the Nuggets. I guess it was last night. This will come out on Sunday. But the playing game against the Nuggets, they just kind of toyed with them, and they made a push to get back in it, but it just felt like the Nuggets had complete control of that. Every game Jokic got whatever he wanted to against them, which is, I ain't saying much. He gets whatever he wants against anybody, but But that was kind of their first big test, and it didn't go so well. So we'll see. They'll have plenty more of them. They got 75 more games they've got to play. So, and a bunch of those will be against good opponents. So we'll see how that goes. And then the other team that is honestly has been a little bit surprising to me is the Warriors. I thought CP3 was going to work, but I have to admit I was not expecting it to look this good this quickly. I mean, it looks like it's going to work. I mean, my biggest takeaways, the first was obviously the non-Steph minutes. This has been their biggest problem since the dynasty started. Even when KD was there, their biggest issue was the plus-minus when Steph was off the floor. And it seems like CP3 has solved that issue. The team, last time I looked, the team has a better plus-minus with a way better plus-minus with him off the floor than they do on the floor, which is obviously those numbers will come back down to where Steph has a crazy plus-minus and the bench not so much, but they don't even have to be in the plus. As long as they're not way in the negative or even, they are fine. That they will be really good and they will win a whole lot of games. And this bench unit led by CP3 has looked really, really solid. They defensively is where they've looked really good with all those athletes and GP2 and Moody and Kuminga, and then you've got Sarge in the back who's doing his thing. He's playing really well. I just got to mention it. He's playing really well right now. And there's been a couple of times where they have went 5 in, 5 out. They put the 5 bench players in and took the 5 starters out, and that's something you don't see in the pros very often. So that was pretty cool to see. I'm not gonna lie. And like I just mentioned, Dario Saric, I knew he was going to be a great pickup. I said it was probably one of the most underrated signings of free agency, and it didn't get any media coverage really. But he has been really, really good for them. He's a huge reason they beat the Kings the other night. Like, huge reason. Hit a bunch of big threes when they was trying to make their comeback, and he had 20 against the Thunder in the play-in game. So, I mean, he's provided the versatility that I thought he would. And if teams are going to blitz their guards and Chris Paul and Steph, when he's setting a screen, that he's gonna pop and he's gonna shoot them threes all day long, and he's a good shooter, better than like JaMychal Green they had last year, which was really their only big stretch the floor option. And then Kuminga and Moody have looked solid so far. It feels like they're finally starting to understand their roles and play their roles. I think Moody's always been kind of good at this, but Kuminga he couldn't understand what his role was, but I think he's finally starting to get it. The talent has always been there for him. And things are finally starting to click for him. He's having that third-year click. And then another takeaway was just the mix of styles. Most people said the different play styles of Chris Paul and the Warriors group was going to be an issue and that it was going to be a problem for him, but it's working to their advantage. Like Chris Paul, he's fitting in fine when he's playing with Steph and them when they're on the floor. But when Steph goes off the floor, teams always think they can take a sigh of relief and they can relax a little bit. But now CP3 comes in and he dominates the game in the way he does. That's kind of slow and methodical, got the ball in my hands and making the right play, just picking apart a defense. So you cannot relax when he comes in, but what's making it so special is that it's a completely different type of offense. Obviously, they still got their motion and their DHOs and their high pick and rolls, but it's just the way it's ran it's a little different when CP's in the game, and it's looking really cool. It's harder on defense is just because they have to change their defensive strategy mid-game more than once. Every time they come in the game and make subs, and this lineup's in the game, we got to play one way, and then this lineup's in the game, we got to play another way. So it's really, I think that the mix of styles is working to their advantage. And don't get me wrong, they still got plenty of things to iron out, but I think that's what makes this start so impressive, is that they're winning despite all the things they need to fix. And then another takeaway has been that great teams. I've always said great teams have to be able to win ugly. They have to be able to win pretty. They have to be able to win in all different types of ways if they want to be good. And these last 2 games have been a perfect example of that. The Kings game, when they played the Kings at home, was very, very ugly for them. Like Steph had I think he had 8 turnovers. It was he just looked, he wasn't focused enough for the type of defense the Kings were playing on him. But I mean, they found a way to scrap it out. They won at the buzzer with the Klay Thompson game winner that he really needed. By the way, I think. It seems crazy that in my opinion, the second best shooter of all time needs a confidence booster, but don't be surprised if he gets on a hot streak right here after that game winner. And then the in-season tournament game against the Thunder, that was the complete opposite. That was a shootout. I think they were both, it was 139 to 138, and won at the buzzer again. This time it was Steph. Controversial offensive goaltending call, whatever your opinion on that was, but still they won. They found a way to win that game. And I just gave all of my biggest takeaways. And without even mentioning Steph Curry. He is back. I shouldn't even say he's back because he's never left, but he is playing at an MVP level again. This is the best start to a season he's had since his unanimous MVP year in 2015-16. And he looks rejuvenated and like he is just purely having fun, enjoying the game of basketball again. But while I'm talking about Steph, that leads me to a little rant I wanted to go on real fast. So I was watching The Herd with Colin Cowherd the other day. I don't know if y'all watch him. And I don't even remember what he was talking about. I guess it was the Bucks, but he said, and this is a direct quote. Giannis is getting to the end of his prime. Probably has about 2 more prime years, then he's an older player. Steph is out of his prime. There are things they can do, things they can't. So Steph needs things that he didn't need 5 years ago, and Giannis is about a year away from needing things that he can't do that he could do 4 years ago. That's a direct quote from, and I love Cowherd, but he is probably one of my favorite sports TV guys, but he is just way off on this point. First of all, Giannis is 28 years old. In 2 years, that means he will be 30. He is not nearing the end of his prime. He might just now be entering it, if we're being honest. But I'm not even going to talk about Giannis. He said Steph needs things now that he didn't need 5 years ago. This is just false. 5 years ago, Steph, I don't know if I remember, Steph needed KD to win a championship. 2 years ago, he literally just carried the Warriors to a championship by himself without another superstar. So how does he need things now that he didn't need back then? He is clear. Back then, they needed a team full of vets to win a championship. With Sean Livingston and Leonardo Barbosa, Andrew Bogut, all these veteran players they needed on their team. He just won a couple years ago with a bunch of young guys, and I mean, yeah, they had Otto Porter and Iguodala if they needed them, but they still were a team full of young guys. And he is clearly better now than he was back then. I mean, if you don't think that's true, we might not be watching the same games. He is stronger, more skilled, smarter than he has ever been. So I don't know how somebody could say that he is out of his prime. I just don't know. But Steph, I don't even talk about Steph the whole time. The other one's KD. KD looks just as good, if not better, than he ever has. He literally just averaged 29 points per game while shooting 56% from the field, 40% from 3, and 92% from the free throw line. Let me repeat that. 56% from the field as a jump shooter is unreal. That is unreal. There's only a handful of players that have had 50, 40, 90 seasons. He just had a 55, 40, 90 season. I think it was one of the only times it's ever happened, if not the only time it's ever happened. But like Steph and KD are both 35 years old, playing better than they ever have with no signs of slowing down. And there's LeBron. I also kind of have an issue with the narrative around LeBron's age. I kind of have a problem with it. Don't get me wrong, it's very impressive what he is doing, but people act like the dude shouldn't be walking at his age. Steph and KD will be that same age. They will be 38 years old in 3 years as well, and they will still be. There's no reason they should not be playing at a high level then, barring a major injury. But like back to LeBron, I feel like LeBron could play another 4 or 5 years. Actually, I'm not even going to put a limit on. I don't want to be like Max Kellerman saying there's the cliff coming like he did with Brady. Because we don't know. I'm not even going to put a number on that. There are not 5 players in this league that I would take over LeBron if I'm getting ready to make a playoff run. It's just not. So I don't. This notion that players move out of their prime, maybe physically they're out of their prime, but these players are better than they ever have been at 35 years old. So I don't. And then there's Paul George. Like I didn't even mention Paul George, who's in his mid-30s and playing the best basketball of his career. So I didn't like that point at all. Like at some point in human history, actually barely over 150 years ago, humans had people in the U.S. had a life expectancy of 40 years. Now it is almost 80 years. We have a life expectancy of almost 80 years. Things change quickly. Technology advances. Medical practices improve, and so on. So this notion that players are way out of their prime at 35, and the way Cowherd talked, Giannis will be out of his at 30. It's just bad. I was gonna try to think of a big word to describe the take, but it's bad. Bad's all I got. The days of players playing 13 seasons before they break down like Magic, Bird, and MJ, those days are over first of all, because of how young these players are coming into the season and coming into the league, and then how talented they are. We will be seeing more and more people play 15, 20 seasons at a high level. Jason Tatum, for example, has a lot of years left. Giannis has a lot of years left. Luka has many years left, and I could keep going down the list, but I won't. So, sorry I had to rant about that. I'm done with that. So let's get back into the season. Since I just talked about LeBron, I want to discuss his Lakers for a minute. But honestly, I have no idea what I even want to say about them. I mean, their season it's been really weird to start, but there are a couple of things that are making it that way that I just wanted to talk about for a second. First one was LeBron's minutes restriction. They know good and well that if these games are in the balance and on the line in the fourth quarter, even if they go to overtime as we saw the other night, LeBron is breaking that minutes restriction. They are going to disregard that so quick. So it seems pointless that they even had this idea in their head in the first place. But like I said, they've already broken their own law in the first few games. So I don't that won't last long. Trust me, that will not last long unless the team starts playing well. But I don't. It seems that they're too reliant on him right now. Second thing with Austin Reeves' role, I thought going into this season, I thought he was going to be probably the primary ball handler for this team and the primary offensive initiator because I thought LeBron kind of wanted to take a back seat and preserve his energy for the playoffs. But it looks like it goes LeBron, AD, D'Lo. And I'm not sure that's the best option for this team. There's no reason D'Lo, I don't want to knock D'Lo the whole time, but there's no reason D'Lo should be playing more minutes than Austin Reeves. The third thing was Rui Hachimura's role. He's another one that was a part of that returning core that everybody made a big deal out of when they re-signed, and it looked like he was ready to take another step. I mean, all I've heard is he's been working out with LeBron all season. LeBron really likes him, like where he's getting better at. They're improving at certain aspects of the game, blah, blah, blah. The dude's only playing 15 minutes per game. I don't know if he's been hurt. I don't know if he's on a minutes restriction. But whatever is maybe, and they've got to get those minutes up. He's one of their best players. They've got to get those minutes up. Another issue I'm having with them is the comebacks they're trying to make. They cannot keep getting behind in these games and thinks they're going to make these crazy comebacks and win these games. That's something that's not sustainable. If they do that all year, they will struggle seeding wise and have an uphill battle all year. But I mean, there's also some good things that I've seen. Like AD has been somewhat consistent for the first 5-6 games. He still isn't dominating like I think he should be able to, but he's playing well. So I'm not gonna keep hating. He's playing pretty well. LeBron obviously still has it. He's had 2 really really good games this year, and he still proved that he can be the best player on the floor at any time. And then Taurean Prince and Christian Wood seem like they were the right signings for him. Honestly, they're playing pretty well. I mean, I guess that's kind of why Rui Hachimura hasn't been playing is because those two are playing well. But we'll see how the season shakes out. But their start to the season has been strange. It's just because in spurts they look like a championship team, and then in other spurts it's like they look like a team that might not even make the playoffs, might not even make the play-in. So I don't even. It's something that I really don't know how to explain. They were kind of this way last year. Like you would see them in moments, and you're like they very well may go to the championship, and then you see them in other moments. It's like. How are they even where they're at? So I don't know how to judge the Lakers, but I think they'll be fine once Darvin Ham figures out his rotations, figures out a way to get the ball in Reeves' hands more and out of D'Lo's hands more. D'Lo's had some good games, but he's just too inconsistent. Whereas Reeves is gonna make the right play. It's just gonna and D'Lo is too, but he's way too inconsistent for me. So I just think they've got some things to figure out if they want to get to the championship level that they want to be at. Lastly, I just kind of wanted to give my reaction to the first day of the in-season tournament games. I mean, it went pretty well. If you ask me, every game was competitive and in the balance, except for the Wizards Heat game. But even the Wizards made a comeback and made it somewhat interesting in the last few minutes. But I was only able to watch the Knicks Bucks, Warriors Thunder, Nuggets Mavs, and some of the Nets Bulls game. And I'll say all 4 of them had playoff level intensity, and it seems like the players are taking it seriously. I don't know if that's purely because of the new tournament and the new concept. I mean, they seem to like it, but it could just, I mean, the whole season really has had playoff intensity, and I think that's just due to the talent level and the parity in the league. And there's a lot of teams that think they can get to where they want to go. So, but it was fun to watch, honestly. I mean, the courts are divisive on social media. I feel like that's all I've seen yesterday and today is people talking about the courts, whether they like them, whether they don't. But either way, even if people are posting that they don't like them, it's still attention being drawn to the NBA, and I think that was their goal. Their goal was to get some more eyeballs on the NBA during football season, and the start of their season, into baseball season, and the NFL is still going strong, and college football is obviously still going. So it's just to kind of get some more eyeballs on them before Christmas. But like I said, overall, I mean, I think the first day was a success, and I think this was the right move for the NBA. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the rest of it plays out. But that would do it for everything I wanted to talk about in this episode. I realize there are a whole bunch of teams that I left out, and I just had to choose the teams that I have watched the most and the games that I've been able to watch the most. So I'll try to, as the season goes on, I'll try to watch more teams over the next week so that I can talk about them more in depth for the next episode. But, I mean, there's 30 teams in the NBA. There's, on any given night, there could be 10 games on, so that's just a lot. I'm not complaining. I love watching basketball, but then you just got to understand that there's some teams that I'm not even going to spend my time talking about. Like, I may have one segment all year on the Wizards just because they're not even worth talking about. There's plenty of other better teams to talk about, so it'll probably be a lot of the same teams repeated as the season goes out, just because that's just the way it goes. That's just the way coverage of the NBA goes, and how many national TV games and stuff there are. So, but yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I've been your host, Ethan Jackson, and thanks again for watching or listening to Hoopla. See you next time.